Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a combo out here that should give us a pretty devastating looking pattern. We've tested these shells a couple of times on the channel and they've always been super impressive, but we have not tried them through today's choke, and it is a new choke for the channel as well, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what we can get from it. But as for the shells we brought out here today, I got out some of these, the Winchester Longbeard XR shells, but these are the 12 gauge 3.5 inch 2 1/8 ounce payload of 6s, moving about 1,050 feet per second. Now the Longbeard shells across the board are some pretty impressive performers most of the time, but these 3.5 inch versions that we've tested several times on the channel have been absolutely lights out. They're pretty stout in the recoil department, there's no doubt about that, but if you want to shoot a 3.5 inch shell from a 12 gauge, these are pretty hard to argue with. So I expect that trend to continue and for us to see another pretty nasty pattern through today's choke. But as for today's setup that we've got to run them through, I brought out the Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag, but for the choke, we've got this guy, which is a Rectifire Cyclone. It's a 680 constriction, which should be a very good choke combination for these Longbeard shells. So this combo should work out pretty nicely for us today, but we'll see what kind of a pattern it gives us. But as for today's test, everything is the same as usual. The turkey paper's at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shells. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see if we get another pretty ridiculous looking pattern from these 3.5 inch Longbeard 6s through this new Rectifire 680 choke. I expect it to look pretty good, but let's take our shot and see what kind of pattern we get. Alright, so that shell gave us 1223 through the chrono. The boss claim is only 1,050 on those shells, but this has not been unusual from what we've seen out of them previously. Typically, it's right around that 1,200 feet per second mark for them, so we're looking very much normal for a velocity up here. But what kind of a pattern did they give us through that Rectifiire 680 down there at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40 yard paper, and this is what we got. And yeah, we absolutely have a dead turkey there, there's no doubt about it. There's a ton of them right through the brain and the top edge of the spine there, so yeah, you would have absolutely crushed that bird. Now, our pattern was just a touch high and a touch left, and I did feel very confident in my shot placement on that particular one, so it kind of seems like some of these rectifier chokes that we've tested do shift your point of impact a little bit. Either way, it is clearly a pretty devastating looking pattern all day long. We have a really nice hot core right up here behind that bird's head. There's nowhere through there that he can get away from you. It's a pretty even spread of them as well throughout that core. You might have one small little void over here at the top left corner of that turkey paper, but that's nothing major. Around the edges, it does open up a little bit, but it keeps it a pretty even spread around the edges here. It definitely gives you some leeway to work with while not being blown all over the place. Outside of that, we do maybe have a couple of flyers over there on the right and maybe a few down here at the bottom, but nothing major or unusual for a lead number 6 or a Longbeard shell in general. So I really like that pattern right there. It's got a nice hot core to it, gives you some leeway on either side to work with, and with a lead 6, you would run out of energy before you run out of pattern capability with that performance right there. So I really like that. Is it quite as screaming tight as what we have seen in previous tests with these 3.5 inch Longbeard 6s? Definitely not. We have seen much tighter, much hotter patterns, but that is a very solid, very usable hunting pattern all day long. It's not blown all over the place. You've got a nice centralized area of pellets. You don't have a ton of flyers to work with, so I really like that for what it is. Now, for me personally, a 3.5 inch shell in a 12 gauge just really isn't necessary, but I know there's plenty of people out there that love their 3.5 inch 12 gauge loads, and that's all they want to use. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But this combo would be a very solid choice for you. If you're somebody that prefers a little bit more of an open pattern with a good even spread rather than a super tight, super hot core looking pattern, this is going to do the job just fine for you. So overall, I don't think we can really complain too much about that. If it was centered up a little bit better, it might look a little bit nicer on the paper, but that's why you test your different chokes and loads to see where they impact, because they will change your point of impact when you switch between chokes and shells. Either way, that's a very solid performance right there. Not a whole lot to complain about. Might not be the hottest pattern we've seen out of these shells. Might not be the tightest pattern we've seen from these shells, but that is a very nice huntable pattern all day long. So looking pretty good here today, I would say. And here's the wad out of that shell. Very standard Winchester Longbeard XR type of equipment here. These ones are red, and they are just a little bit longer than the standard gray ones you see in the 3-inch version, but nothing else is really different about it. There's nothing stuck down in there, no major damage or anything. So looking good here, and I'd say it did just fine through that Rectifire 680. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that pattern right there? I'd say it's a very solid huntable pattern all day long. Like I just mentioned a minute ago, might not be the tightest pattern we've seen from these shells, but I really like that performance there. That is more than good enough to take a turkey with it at 40 or 45 yards all day long. You're going to run out of energy with a lead 6 before you run out of pattern capability, so looking very solid there. There's no doubt about that. I wouldn't hesitate to take that out on a turkey hunt. Now it is a 3.5-inch shell, so you do get punished in the recoil department. But I know there's a lot of you out there that love your 3.5-inch shells and wouldn't hesitate in the slightest to use that. And it seems to be a pretty good option. So not a whole lot of complaints here today overall, I wouldn't say. But leave your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these 3.5-inch Longbeard shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Would you hunt with this combination? Or is a 3.5-inch shell like that just a little bit over the top for you? And what other shells or choke combos do you want to see us run with either those 3.5-inch Longbeard 6s or that Rectifire 680? Let me know all that down below. At the end of the day, I don't think that disappointed at all. It's a nice even spread of them through there. You've got a nice hot core. You don't have a ton of scattered pellets all over the place or a ton of flyers to deal with or anything like that. That's just a solid 3.5-inch lead number 6 hunting pattern. Not a whole lot to complain about there. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.